Today we're going to start looking at percents, but before we can really look at them, we need to know what they are. The word percent means per 100 or out of 100, so that means 55% would mean 55 out of 100. Now the whole out of 100 part should make sense because the root word cent means 100 or 100. So for example, a century is 100 years. There are 100 centimeters in a meter. So cent means 100, percent means per 100. And a percent really is a way to represent a part of a whole. So it is a ratio that is a part to whole ratio. When we're talking about 55%, we're saying 55 out of 100. 55 is the part we're talking about out of a whole of 100. So a percent is a part to whole ratio. Now there are some common percentages that you should memorize. Take a minute to look at these, maybe write them down, and then hit play once you've written them down. Now the reason that we should memorize some of these, that we need to know these, is because it helps us to visualize percentages. It helps to understand the relationships between fractions, decimals, and percents better. And it is important to note that fractions, decimals, and percents are all ways of writing a part of a whole. And in different situations, one might be more useful than another. But most of us can visualize a fraction better than a percent, so knowing the common equivalencies is a way to help you to visualize what percent of something is shaded. And these actually should make sense if you think about it in terms of the idea that percent means out of 100. So for example, 3/4, if we wanted to make it a fraction out of 100, we could say 4 rather, times 25 is 100. 3 times 25 is 75. So the fraction 3/4 is equal to the fraction 75 hundredths, or 75 out of 100. 75 out of 100 is 75%, 75 per 100. You can use that concept to change any fraction into a decimal. If I look at 2/5, for example, I can figure that out by saying, well, 5 times 20 is 100. 2 times 20 is 40. So 2/5 equals 40 out of 100, or 40%. And this will even work for ones where it may not seem to work. This one doesn't look maybe like it's going to work because we can't do 8 times anything and get 100. However, it will work if we think about it in terms of cross products. So think about what our missing number is. What is 5 out of 8 is equal to what out of 100? If I use cross products, I'm going to do 5 times 100. And I could do 8 times x and set it up as an equation, but remember we've learned that the shortcut for using the cross products to solve this, or I could do 8 times x rather, and say 5 times 100 is equal to 8 times x. But remember, the shortcut for solving a proportion or finding the missing number here is to multiply the two that are diagonal from each other, divide by the one that's left, and that will give you what your variable is. So 5 times 100 is 500, divided by 8 equals 62 and 5/10. So 5/8 then is equal to 62 and 5/10 out of 100, or 62 and 5/10%. We're not going to really focus on that during our lesson today, but I wanted to show that to you to sort of build upon your understanding of fraction or of percents, and knowing that they always have to be out of 100. Now, one of the reasons we want to use those common percents and have that in our head is because it's going to help us when we're estimating. And let's look at our first example up here on the upper left-hand corner. About what percent of the square is shaded? Well, when I look at that, that might be a little overwhelming when I first look at it, but start thinking about splitting it in half and then maybe splitting it in half again. Well, it makes it pretty easy to see that we definitely have a fourth shaded right there, and a fourth is 25%, but we have more than that because we have those other two pieces where we have a piece here and a piece here. Well, if I look at this piece that's up here, I can take that and I can think about rotating it around and putting it in the empty spot that's in the other fourth. For example, just doing this. And that sure looks like it's going to fill that up just about right. So those two pieces together make the other fourth, giving us 2/4 or 50% shaded. The next one, about what percent of the dots are circled. Now this one could be a little tricky if you don't read it carefully. It does not say what percent of the circle is filled. It says what percent of the dots are circled. So what it's really saying is these are the dots that are circled, and these are the dots that are not circled. And so hopefully you can look at that and say, it looks like it's about half that are circled or half that are red up there. That's 50%. Take a moment to try the other 7 problems. Pause while you do that, and then play to check your answers. And here are what your answers should be. Remember, if you missed one, go back and try drawing on it or try visualizing cutting it up in pieces to see if you can figure out why it is what it is. Now, a couple of other concepts to think about. We're just going to look at 1 or 2 of these. When you look at this, it says fill in the missing percent in each pie chart below. Then use the pie chart to help answer the question. So students at Cabot High School, 46% are boys. The question says what percent of the students at Cabot High are girls? A fundamental understanding of a circle graph is that all of the pieces have to add up to the whole circle. Well, one whole we know is 100%. So if the boys represent 46%, then the girls have to represent whatever else I need to make a total of 100. Or in other words, the whole circle is 100% minus the boys who represent 46%. And when I do that, I'm going to get 54%. The girls represent 54% of the school. Looking at the one below that, motor vehicles at the stadium lot. Trucks and cars make up what percent of the vehicles? So I have a missing percent here for trucks. I don't know what that percent is, but if I add up 35, 32, and 12, I'm going to get 79. Those 3 pieces together equal 79. So I could do 100 minus 79, and I'm going to get 21. The trucks must represent 21%. So now go back to the question. Trucks and cars make up what percent of the vehicles? So trucks and cars. That means I'm going to need to put these 2 pieces together. 35% and 21% together equal 56%. So that hopefully has given you just a good general basic understanding of percents, and we're going to then move into our next lesson will be on converting between fractions, decimals, and percents.